And I think we are live. Don't know what's going on here. He's having a complete heart attack. Stop it. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Forever Rugby on Forever Sports. For today's Monday show, we had an entire weekend, we reflected on it, and we now go again. It is T minus 5 days until the Boks will run out of Bloemfontein and take on Wales in the second of the 3-match test series. And at the moment, quite a lot of anticipation for the Springbok team announcement, which will be tomorrow at about 12 o'clock. And on the back of what is arguably one of the worst performances we've seen from the Springboks in the recent years, I think it's going to be a very interesting team announcement because expect to see quite a lot of changes. And I think that what changes will be quite interesting in terms of what the plan is for this whole 3-match series, because I think there's a lot of different ways to go about it. And I think that if we're going to be very brutally honest, we need to be very clear and very honest about what we want to get out of the series and where we want to go this year, and kind of start prioritizing certain things as we sort of prepare for the 2023 World Cup. And so, whilst we obviously want to win every single game, and that comes with sort of Springbok territory, you expect to win every single game and you can't lose games, there's always going to be an element of, building towards a bigger picture. And unfortunately, that does mean that, for example, certain players who need game time are going to get game time. They might be a bit rusty. And, ideally you could sit there saying, well, this is not the time to give players game time. But because we have now aligned our seasons with the Northern Hemisphere, for example, the next time any of these players can actually play domestic rugby from a sort of South African team perspective will be in pretty much October, which will only give you 2, maybe 3 games ahead of the end of year tour. So we're now talking about this squad being the squad we will use for the next 8 tests that we will have. And then we sort of have a brief break, and then we go into the end of year tour. So there's not really much time to give any players sort of game time outside of the Springbok environment. And, this is a very settled squad of players with a couple of new faces. And we did see 2 debutants this weekend, for examples. People saying that we never play youngsters. We've already seen 2 new faces within the Springbok setup. But I think that, there is, from what I can understand and from what we're sort of gauging from press conferences, there is very much a plan for the season. And that is not necessarily picking the best team or the team, for example. And when I say the best team, I don't think it's that easy. I think it's a case of if we were to play the World Cup final tomorrow, who would be the 23? I don't think we're going to see that 23 every single week. We do want to bring in a couple of players. We do want to see how other players are faring. And we do just need to start testing combinations, because this is the squad that we have picked for the next 8 tests. This is very much going to be the bulk of the World Cup squad, and we need to make sure that we are getting it right and we have got as much information as we can regarding, where we are sitting as a Springbok squad. So, I think if we bear that in mind, I do expect to see quite a few changes to the side tomorrow. Starting 15, I think maybe 2 or 3 changes. But the bench sounds like it could be quite a few changes to the bench, which would be interesting, because I think, it's a very big squad. 43 players is a very big squad, far bigger than what we will have at the World Cup next year. And there's not a lot of opportunities throughout the year to really bring in new players. You think of, the next 2 Wales tests, for example. If you were to win this weekend, it means you can experiment to a certain degree next weekend. There's maybe that home game against Argentina where you could give a few new faces a go. But that's really it, Maybe because we've got 2 home games against New Zealand. Now, you're not going to throw in new players for the sake of it against New Zealand. We've got a point to prove against Australia, so I don't feel like that's a brilliant time to be experimenting. And then we go on the end of year tour, where we actually traditionally blood the least amount of players. In terms of, if you look at the last sort of 15 years, the end of the year tour is a time where we don't generally bring in new youngsters and give new caps. And it's not this Springbok manager in particular. It's sort of all Springbok coaches over the last sort of 15 years. They just don't generally tend to do that because of it being so incredibly tough to go overseas, play in foreign conditions, and to expose players like that at test level. So the incoming tour has always been that opportunity, and we've already seen 2 new faces in the squad. I think we might even see some more debutants this weekend. But yeah, so in terms of who's in the chat, let me know where you're watching from. I've got a couple of people putting down their teams. We'll talk a little bit about what I would like to see, what you guys might want to see, and what we do need to see in the next few weeks. But I see Sebastian Swartz in the chat. I see Doubles here. I see Leves here. Camper, welcome. Ultimate Sharpshooter, how you doing? Handy says the change should be easy. Just kick Alt and Faf out the team, then it's settled. I mean, I can understand the call for Alton, but I think you're dreaming if you think Faf declare is going to be dropped from that squad. Mostly it's a holiday there. Yo, what's it? Happy 4th of July. If you ask me any changes, Lewis has got a new team in there. Just Services, Pollard at 10, Peter Steph places Franco. Franco goes to the bench, bringing Marcel Coetzee on the bench, Trevor in for Ox. So I'm just going to go through a couple of stuff, like, yeah, just see what I can pick out. Barring injuries from the last game, the only changes I see is Paul and PSDF Toy in. Villains remains at 15, says Double. You imagine Damien starting at 10 with Calant on 15. I don't think we will see Damien starting at 10. I'm happy to be wrong, but my gut feel says no. Alpha Lingo, how you doing? Says, look, beat Wales first, then beat the All Blacks, then we can start risking new players where we can. 100%. Somebody's asking Makuba's Renach. He is injured, not available for selection. Blind Pepper Spray says it would be nice to have an on-form 10 that can get Springbok experience. And Billy on the bench on the slight change. The Calant struggles in the first game. And he says, I feel Australia is the only team at the moment that will beat us every time we are going to meet. So, yeah, so let's talk about it. So, first of all, Peter Steph Toy was always supposed to be available for this test. Last week came too soon for him. This was supposed to be his return test, his upcoming test. Now, traditionally, within this Springbok management, we have very rarely brought players back from injury off the bench if they are regular starters. And the reason for that, and I quite like it actually, is the fact that you play Peter Steph Toy on Saturday and you start him. And if he struggles, and if he's really out of his depth, after 30 minutes, you can pull him off and you can play somebody who's a bit more settled. As opposed to saying, right, we've had 50 minutes, things are going well, we'll throw in Peter Steph Toy, and he looks completely behind the pace of the game, he's a bit nowhere, and you can't replace him, and you have to watch him struggle for 30 minutes without being able to do anything, or 40 minutes. So traditionally, we have tended to start players when they're coming back from injury, because you can always hook them if things aren't going to plan. And I quite like that, actually. I think it's quite an intelligent way of doing things. I think that you can kind of get up to the speed of the game as the game goes, but if things are going badly, you can be yanked off, and there can still be time to remedy those errors. So I do get the feeling that Peter Steph Toy will start this weekend. I think he will start in the number 7 jersey. I also think Pollard will come back. I think he will start at 10. I'll be very interesting to see if we go with a 6-2 split. And yeah, literally 50% of me says, yes, we will. Why wouldn't we, given the fact that it worked? The other 50% of me says, I think they're worried about game time. Now, I'm going to ask people to be practical here. And this squad is not changing. Okay? So these players are the players we have to use. Now, the reason I say that is we've only picked 2 fly halves. Now, for example, on Saturday, we kind of saw Villy and Damien almost sort of trading a little bit of duties when it came to who was standing at first receiver. Because we saw Damien Willemse there sometimes, we saw Villy Leroux there sometimes, we saw Damien Willemse plays kicking, and he plays kick pretty well. I think he got 2 out of 3. Obviously, a very big clutch penalty towards the end. But if you're going to be brutally honest, I don't have enough faith in Damien Willemse's place kicking abilities or tactical kicking abilities to a certain degree to start him at 10. I just don't. I think he's an incredibly exciting player. I think that he had his best game in a Springbok jersey on Saturday. And I said, the real Damien Willemse, please stand up, because we finally saw it. 12, 15. That's where he can start. If he has to slot in at 10 later on in the game, or if he's coming off the bench and has to slot in at 10 if needs be, I can go with that. But unless you have a recognized goal kicker at 15, I don't think it's fair to be putting him in that number 10 jersey when that's not one of his strengths. And you have to. It's test match rugby. You have to have a reliable goal kicker. And that was a bit of an issue last year because, for example, we've seen it last year, Andre Pollard wasn't kicking for poles particularly well. On Saturday, Elton Yankees didn't kick for poles particularly well, although he traditionally has had a very good percentage. So that's a massive issue. And you look at Dan Biggar. Dan Biggar doesn't often miss a lot of kicks. He missed that very important conversion on the weekend. He actually missed 2 kicks. But generally, you've got to have a world-class place kicker in Test match rugby. for those 80-minute penalties, for those, tries in the corner where you've got to actually have a chance. You got to sit there thinking, you know what, this guy could yet slot it from right up at the touchline, because those 2 points are so important. When you're playing against the All Blacks, you can't afford to leave 8 points out, like we did on Saturday. So we've got to have a good place kick, and I think for that particular reason, as well, I think to a certain degree, I think game management wise, I don't think David Willemse has his game management. I don't think is ready to be playing a 10, and I also think it just doesn't play to his strength. So don't do it. So on that note, I think that we've got to be. I think it's going to be quite an interesting selection from what can we achieve out of this Test match, more so than just a victory. We win this weekend, we've won the Test match series, which is a huge boost. The question sort of becomes, what else can we achieve on that journey? And if that means building depth, if that means building game time, then all the better. So George says, doesn't help other number 9 selector and the instructions from are to 9 and 10. Whatever you do every time, please kick the ball in positions away. Also do it as poor as possible. Steve says, thanks, Stephen. Blooding new players is fine. However, putting players in who are not box standard is nonsense. We cannot select a person that has not played for 6 months. Seems so stupid from the coaching team. I'm just happy to see Willems. You see, now that's an interesting concept, because does that rule apply to everybody? And the reason I say that is, there are certain players who have come. I mean, for example, last year, Andre Pollard had played about 120 minutes of rugby the entire season, going into the British and Irish Lions, and then he played, and then he got picked consistently, and nobody was ever arguing that selection. So, I do think it's always a bit of a risk in terms of picking players who haven't played in a long time. But at the same time, this Springbok management have got a lot of faith in the players that they have, and a lot of faith in the systems they have, because this has been very much a long-term process. So, I don't think it is ideal that Alton Young. And look, I think had Andre Pollard been in camp, they probably wouldn't have started him. But at the end of the day, the issue they had was the fact that both their flower halves they picked have not played a lot of rugby at the end of the day. And, yes, you don't think that Test match rugby should be where you're giving players game time. But if that's the only time you have, what more can you do? So I'm trying to work out when Peter Stetsatoya actually got injured. Because he did play quite a lot of game rugby this season, which was quite cool. But he has missed a few games, so I don't think he's played in about 6-7 weeks. So I'm interested to see how he goes this weekend. But yeah, and I think that we need to start seeing other players coming in as well, but you also can't make wholesale changes all the time, because we have seen that sometimes that can be very disruptive and very disjointed. For me, Saturday looked like a side that just hadn't played together in a long time. We didn't have even the Georgia game last year, where we actually had an opportunity for these guys to go into the field. They played that Bulls game. The SAA side played against Bulls. The SAA side had played against British and Irish Lions. So effectively, the Springboks did have 3 matches before that first British and Irish Lions test. This year, this was the first match they had all played together. We had players in Japan who hadn't played for a couple of weeks. Even some of the URC players, for example, the Sharks hadn't played in about 3-4 weeks. So it looked like a side that was very rusty. And I think that we will see a lot of improvement this weekend. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm kind of at this stage where I just think that I'm putting Saturday out the back of my mind. I don't think, I think that to microanalyze it is just going to lead down to nothingness. I don't think there's much point in doing it, because it's just going to make us annoyed. And I just think that, we're gonna dig too deep into a test match, which was not great, but we still managed to win. And I think that's the important thing. So we say, right, there's the win. We look at the positives. So what were the positives? David Willemse looked superb. Jasper Wiese looked a lot better after a couple of early mistakes. Was nice. Was pretty solid with his ball carrying. I thought Willie LaRue looked very good when he came on. Ulrich Lowe looked 100% test match ready when he came on. I thought he was really impressive. We didn't see much of Salman Murat, but he did get onto the field, which is really nice. And look, the Rolling Moore did look very effective in the second half. I thought our replacement front row was very impressive. half of me wonders if they might get a start this weekend to try and change things up a little bit. I still quite like them coming off the bench because I think that they close off games very well. But yeah, so I think there's a lot of different factors going into the selections for tomorrow. So I personally would not be surprised if we were to see a 5-3 split. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Pollard starting. And then I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a bench of the likes of like a Herschel Yankees, Alton Yankees, Willie LaRue, because we do need to get game time into both our number 10s. And I include Andre Pollard in that because if I have to go and look at how much rugby Pollard's played, that didn't help that he was benched by Montpellier because Pollard got busy is playing silly rugby. But, you know, Pollard hasn't played a tremendous amount of rugby this season. You know, I think over here he's played 427 minutes from end of year, well, for the entire domestic season, which is not, I mean, so he's played 427 minutes. If you were to look at a player like, I don't know, so what did Ruan Nokia play the most minutes of all players in the URC, for example? He has played, in the 22 season, he played 1,634 minutes, for example. That's what Ruan Nokia played during the URC. Ulrich Lowe, for another example, played 1,600 minutes as well. So this is the, you know, you'd want players who've ideally played well over 1,000 minutes leading into this test match series. Andre Pollard and Alton Yankees have not played a lot of rugby, and yes, it's far from ideal to have them, you know, finding game time in a Springbok situation, but they are the number 1 and 2 Flyhouse, and we do need to get them back to playing at their best because that's who we have faith in. So I wouldn't be surprised if we do then go with a 5-3 split. The forwards I think are interesting because I think that with Pieter-Steph du Toit coming back into the team, first of all gives us a line option. I think it means that we can be a bit more dynamic with our loose trio, and I'll be very interested to see. I think that Jasper Wiese deserves another start, but at the same times, if we are going to give somebody else a go at number 8, for example, this wouldn't be a bad time. You know, I don't think, for example, I don't think we're going to see Evan Roos this weekend. And that's what people think. I don't think we're going to see Evan Roos. Could we see Ulrich Lowe at number 8? Probably not. Maybe. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if we saw Kwaka Smith at 8. I thought that Kwaka Smith looked absolutely superb when he came on this weekend. And I think that by having Pieter-Steph du Toit in the side, he covers that line out option. He brings that physicality that Jasper Wiese we'd miss out if we didn't pick Jasper Wiese. So I think that Siya Kolisi, Pieter-Steph du Toit, and Kwaka Smith can be a very well balanced loose trio. So I wouldn't be surprised if we do go with that kind of option, for example. From the lock point of view, it's interesting because Franco Mostert, you know, is a better lock than he is a flank, and that's fine. And I think we all agree with that. And I think he would tell you right now he's a better flank. I'm a better lock than he is flank. What we mustn't do, though, is completely disregard his performance at flank after one test, because last year he did play at number 7 incredibly well. He was probably one of our best players in the British and Irish Lions series. So let's also again not just disregard him and say he can never play flank again after one bad game at 7, because we did that with Pieter-Steph du Toit. When Pieter-Steph du Toit first started playing at 7, he was really not good, and we all said terrible, useless. What are we going to do? Not a flank. Yada 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 yada. 2019 Player of the Year, World Player of the Year, by the way, best player in the world in the number 7 jersey. So that's what I'm saying. I don't think we need to have knee-jerk reactions from this weekend. You know, let's be a bit more fair to the players, and let's kind of just move on. After this weekend, then you can really start having a go at players. And you're sitting there saying, this is not 2 games in a row. You can't afford to have 2 bad games in a row in a Springbok jersey. One game, you know, if you've built up a bit of credit, like Franco Mostert, for example, has built up a hell of a lot of credit. You have 2 bad games in a row, you sit there going, right, listen, chap, now you're going to have to start pulling up your socks, because we can't select if you're going to play like that. But let's go through some of the comments. They're all coming through very quickly, so apologies if I do miss some of them. Where are we at? I'm just going to try and pick a couple. So Clint DeVos says that Lowe and Kwaka changed the dynamic of the game when they came on. The tempo immediately increased. Grant Swart says Jasper Wiese was clueless, and the more he pushed past the front man on a few occasions, he's just not anchored at the line-out catcher. Campus says possible problem trying to get someone to find form. World Cup comes, they still haven't found form, and you guys didn't get experience. Well, that is all the issue, isn't it? It's how long do you back a player until you have to sit there going, shit, he's not coming good. We need to find somebody else. We have the time to find somebody else. Ricardo says give Yankees another chance at 10. We gave Villy many chances when he was playing bad. I think Villy is going to make a comeback this year, says well, do. Hope so. I think there should be at least one fly off that play. Ooh, where we at? I lost that comment. It's now just jumped. This bloody chat. I lost it, sorry. Apologies, people. That YouTube's having me. Where are we? Okay, now I've lost the comments. I'm sorry. Now here it is. I think there should be at least one fly off the play. A good amount of rugby recently to get Elton and Andre back into form. I think there would have been. I just think that they just don't know who to pick because I think Marnie Liebach is the furthest thing away from what is considered a normal Springbok fly half that there is, and yet was the informed fly half. I think Chris Smith is a solid option, but I don't think he's anything special. And Jordan Hendricks is the most promising option, but he's 20 years old. So yeah, I think that's the issue. We just don't have another fly half option. There is Jan Koersen, but he's made of glass and not available. So what do we do? Luke Kate says, actually, it's the newer players that are really stamping their mark. People like Kwaka, Willem Solo. And he says, Sam Sia shouldn't start. He's not as good as everyone thinks. I mean, he was our player of the year last year. But apart from that, what about Moscow Sia? Kwaka should stay in the bomb squad. He just brings the energy at 55 minutes. Kitsoff, Marks, Kwaka, Mostert, Low, Herschel, and Willems to just bring that massive energy and impact at 55 minutes. Tend to agree. I do like Kwaka off the bench, but I'm happy if he were to start. He brings a lot as well. Ricardo says, start Mostert and Eben at lock. My screens keep going on and off, and it's driving me up the wall. So once you guys have finished having your heart attack, Louis will go 6 Low, 7 PSS, Toy, 8 Kwaka, bench for Sia and Visa. Sia starts, our captain. Let's be honest, for the number 1 ranked team against the 9th ranked team, we should have played better. Top team like SA should win without question and should be winning comfortably. 100%. One thing I would say is that we have in the last recent history, we always struggled against Wales because they do play quite a similar brand of rugby. But yeah, it wasn't a good performance. I think we're all on the same page there. As I said, I think it was probably one of the worst games we've seen the Boks play in a long, long time. So they do have to pick it up because one bad game is excusable, 2 bad games starts becoming a habit, and then you're a bit in the dirt. Welcome, Terry G, the latest member of the Forever Sports Members Club. Thank you so much. Welcome. If you guys would like to become a member, it is a pinned comment there. It's just a small monthly donation which helps keep this channel going. So thank you very much to him. Really appreciate it. Randolph says, slap me sideways. Why isn't Evan playing? He's on top form. Again. The thing with Evan Roos is the Springboks are a system-based side with roles to play. And you've got to be able to fit into the Bok mold, for example. And that's why Ulrich Lowe was destined to play Springboks very quickly because he is the perfect player within a Springbok setup. And look what he did on Saturday. He looked really, really good. Evan Roos and Dwayne Vermeulen said it, and I said it before in the show. He was saying that if you look at where Evan Roos plays the Stormers, he's running around with the backline a lot. He's very much in the loose, stuff like that. There's not that same opportunity within the box. And that's not to say that he can't play for the Springboks. It's not to say that he's got no future, but I think he will take a bit longer to get into the setup once, because I think he's a different type of player to what you're used to. And that's why it took a long time for Kwaka Smith to really find his role within the Springboks, because when have the Springboks ever picked like an 80 kg flanker? I mean, it's unheard of. And yet, look at over the last 18 months how good he's become for the Boks. So it does take a bit of a while for certain players to sort of find their role. So I think that Evan Roos will play Springboks, but I can 100% understand why Ulrich Lowe is ahead of him, because I think he just naturally suits the Bok game plan a lot better. How was the All Blacks? I actually only watched the highlights of them. Unfortunately, with load shedding and stuff like that, I didn't manage to watch as much rugby this weekend as I wanted to. So I actually need to sort of catch up a little bit. We'll definitely watch the Maori All Blacks versus Ireland, and obviously we'll watch and we'll be doing watch alongs this weekend because now we've got a contingency which keeps us up during load shedding. Why not start the same team, says Johan Ruud? I think the other players you need game time. I mean, I wouldn't be adverse to doing it. I just, again, there'd be a massive outcry if we did, isn't it? Lewis says, he did not have a great game, but people really just love putting him down for the wrong reasons. He's always big at the rucks and he always never misses a tackle. Sia is somebody who will never grab the headlines because he's not a flashy player. Same as Franco Mostert. There are certain players who do the horrible, horrible work. And that's what people don't like Frans Mahirba, because they look at him and they think, oh, he's big, he's slow around the field, blah, blah, blah. So, Sia is never going to be taking gaps and running through like an Evan Lewis. So you're going to sit there saying, well, he's so much better. Same as Marcel Coetzee, who's one of like the primary ball carriers for the Bulls. So it's easy to sit there saying, well, look at him. He's doing all the hard yards, he needs. But I mean, as I said, Sia Khaleesi always is near the top of tackle charts, and he's usually the top, if not one of the top players when it comes to rucks hit and his rucking and his team breakdown works. So that's kind of what he does in the team. So it's a job which goes very much unnoticed. But I agree. Unfortunately, there is a large segment of people who just wait for him to have a bad game and then say he's useless. He was our player of the year last year. You could have argued maybe could have never Netzbeth, but those two I think were a different level last year. And after one game, we're not going to bin our national captain. So Mo says, Sia not starting makes me think one is not that bright. He said that yourself on Saturday, Stephen. He's the captain, 100%. Smith needs to play at 10. He's a Pollard in the making. I don't mind Chris Smith. I just don't think he's very special. It's the inconsistency. He started to bring a bit more consistency into his game, which was nice to see. But every now and again, he just sometimes can go a bit missing, I find. Jan says, Mostert isn't a 7. He doesn't defend the channel like Kwak or Peter Steph Toy as he does in train there. Look, Peter Steph Toy also. Remember that 57-0 against the Box. Peter Steph Toy played at 7, and he looked like a pub player, unfortunately, because he did take a while to struggle in that position. So it will take time. He's not a natural 7, and ideally we won't play him at 7, but sometimes you have to. Why do we kick possession away? Wales are not good in the air, and we are not. As good as Evan is, I struggle to see space from the next 23, says Brian. Joshua says, I thought Vili came off the bench spectacularly, really changed the whole momentum of the game. I was there at the stadium and he was phenomenal. Can't believe in the reactions video he got a 5.4. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what happened there. Crosswise say, where's Kateta with his wild team selection? Identity says he doesn't have structure. I'm expecting a plus 37-15 score, but damn, I hope we all kill him a 60-10 score line. Luke says, don't you think this is the time for Springboks to freshen up and make the game plan more dynamic? If not now, when we have time. I saw the Carling Champions team won. I didn't actually get to watch them. As I said, I watched basically no rugby this weekend. It was actually really, really frustrating. I think Moss needs to get out of the team and replaced by Coetzee. Mapimpi and need to work on their defense as Zamatrai came because they're both cut and left. I would definitely not drop Moss. I would just replace him out on the. It's interesting though because I don't really like him on the bench. Africa, so love your work, mate. Keep it up. Saw the BBC post. Salute. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Himana says, of course, he never got injured and took the gate. 4 meals in through the ERC. Would he have been the perfect 10 with Andre? Yeah, he probably would be. Unfortunately, Jan Goosen can't play more than about 40 minutes without getting injured. And as much as we all really love watching him play, and he's probably one of the most talented players we've seen in a Bok jersey, maybe ever, I would not have him in the squad. I just wouldn't. I just don't see the point in having somebody who is so unreliable. It's like having a race car that doesn't finish a race. It's fantastic to have it and it flies and it's quick and it's brilliant around 55 of the 58 laps, and then it breaks down, doesn't finish the race. At the end of the day, it's pointless. So yeah. Aaron says, agree, Smith needs more time learning from a legend, maybe as a fringe team for 2023. PSF Toy did not play in the 57-0 game. I'm sure it was the 57 game. It was one of the ball games he played against. We have no 10 at the moment. Very widely, but should be brought in. Whenever I see Damien, I always get nostalgic. What's going on my phone now? Shut up. Sal Fitzcut's going bold. He reckons we're going to see Thomas, Dweber, Trevor, Eben, Ori, Kutsia, PSF, Toy, Ruiz. Well, that'll be a hell of a different pack if we did go there. I hope we don't see Marvin Ori. It sounds very mean, but I just don't. I'd far rather we start Salman Murat than Marvin Ori. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Joseph Dweber. I did wonder about him. I did wonder if we might see him get an opportunity because, again, I think it's if we're talking about, and this is the big thing. When I started the show is, what do we want to achieve this year? Are we wanting to play our best team every single game, or are we trying to build a squad and build experience into players throughout the year, which I think we do need to be doing. And if we are doing that, when can we do that? So do you think we are looking at this Welsh series as, right, this is the time that we're going to experiment a little bit? And, if that's the case, then maybe we do experiment quite a lot for this weekend, and maybe we experiment again next weekend. Have we maybe decided we're going to go one team this first game, one team the next game, and then whoever plays best is the team in the third game? I don't think we've got a lot about, we don't have a lot of opportunity to bring in new players, but I do think this Welsh series is a good one. I just think we would hope that we would play better last week. So yeah, just a quick one. Did Villiers slot into 10 or 15? To be honest, good question, because I was trying to work that out, and maybe the people that are at the game would be able to show us a bit more, because I found that he and Willemse were quite. I mean, we sometimes saw Willemse at first receiver, and we sometimes saw Billy Lou at first receiver, so it's quite difficult to understand who was actually slotting in at 10. So maybe if you were at the game, you might have had a better view in terms of exactly who was there. I find it quite difficult to sort of decide exactly whether we were playing with a number 10 and stuff, because they did seem to be sort of moving around quite a bit. Josh says, do you think that players who can steal, face, jackal the ball could be prioritized? I feel like the lack of it meant we cannot affect the game like we normally do. Billy says, apologies, Jean-Luc Dupre started in the 57-0. Peter Steph came off the bench. Remember, Peter Steph's toy struggle at 7 against England with Ben Young sniping and catching him off the guard. Yeah, I thought he did play. No issue. It is a long time ago, to be fair. 15, but switch around at first receiver. Have Rusty and Ninabar always played the same game plan in their previous clubs? We'll put it this way. They've never played John Dobson rugby. Mostly that's not mean about Ori. I don't want to see him either. Greg says Fussy must get a chance. I don't think we'll see it. Petrol going out. Yeah, no, listen, let's not talk about the petrol price. I was planning on trying to drive through to Bloem for a couple of press conferences this week, but I just can't. I mean, it's just not feasible. We're talking about like a 1,000 to 1,500 rand round trip to go to a press conference. Or you can say, right, let's go stay in Bloem for the week, and then you're looking at like $8,000 for accommodation and shit. Oh no, it's just a disaster. So yeah, in terms of press conferences, we're gonna try our best to see what we can bring out this week. We've got two Welsh ones coming out today because I was there this morning, but it's quite difficult to get to these press conferences this week because they are in Bloem and I'm not in Bloem, and we don't exactly have regional offices just yet. Dion says, I hope you don't see Jesse Creel. Would like to get more comfort around our depth and alternative options around center. Billy says, the point I'm trying to make is one bad game does not define you as a player, 100%. The point, I think Dweber, Esterhuizen, Creel, Fassi, Galant will get their spotlight at Cape Town next week, but only if we win in Bloemfontein. That's what everybody's sort of talking about, the fact that they did switch quite a lot. Dion says, playing locks at loose forward is such a smack in the face of our world-class loose forward candidates. I mean, yeah, no. I mean, it's not an unusual thing. I mean, the change from lock to flank did create a World Player of the Year in Peter Steph the Toy. So, as I said, a lot of it comes down to the lineup options. For me, it looks like Billy on 10, Willemse at 15 when we attacked and vice versa on defense. How does Yankees fit in? Lol, I don't understand how management works. They say they're going to pick players in form, yet Yankees hasn't played any rugby this year, so what form are they going on? Well, they can't. You're not going to. I mean, you can't really pick Pollard in form either, because he hasn't been playing particularly well for Montpellier. So yeah, I mean, if you're going to pick on form, you're not going to pick either. Then we don't have a number 10, so we're always going to sacrifice something there. Davis should play at some point, as we know he's the real third choice. So we know if he is really the third choice ahead of Jan Krovela, 100%. Who do you see as the next Bok coach after next World Cup? I don't know. I'm hoping we're going to see Uckers. I don't think that there are too many. I don't feel like there are a lot of coaches around, South African coaches anyway, who are really ready to take up the mantle. You know, John Dobson is not a traditional Springbok coach in terms of the mold he is. You know, Jake White's not going to come back. Sean Everett's struggling. Ivan Fanzela is struggling. I wouldn't go with Johan van Kraan, although he would be a bit more of a sort of traditional Bok coach. So, I don't know, actually. It'd be quite cool to see Johan Ackerman and Sways de Brain. Be interesting to sort of see if they can sort of make it work. I just don't see us going with an international and a non-South African coach. Though my gut feel is that that you need to understand what South Africa is about. You need to understand our setup. You need to understand what the Springboks are to really be able to get the most out of them. Petrol prices are only high there. Home heating oil costs $2 for the gallon in March. I paid $6 a gallon last week, and we're in the middle of summer. When it's winter in December, it won't shock me if it's $9, $10. Yeah, guys, like living is just being expensive. Billy says, do you think overseas coach will suit the Box like a Scott Robertson, Jimmy Stonehouse? Jimmy Stonehouse needs to go coach the Lions. That's what Jimmy Stonehouse needs to do. Yeah. Lewis says Jan Ackerman would be great, or just get on your knees and beg Jake White to come back. I hope we stay with our coach, says Louis. I'm okay with Jake Ackerman also. So Ackerman will change our game plan totally. We'll play more with the back line. But I think what's important, in whoever the next coach is, whenever that may be, by the way, because there's actually, I mean, it's not, I'm trying to look at if Nino has a 4-year contract, or whether he's actually signed for longer. And assuming that I mean, if, for example, look, the standard thing is if you don't win the World Cup, you tend to get sacked. But if you were to win the World Cup, for example, then I suppose you'd probably keep the same players. Maybe it'll be Dion Davids. Maybe Dion Davids will just do the same, assistant coach through to head coach vibes. Luis, I hope I stay with the coaches. RVH says I'm okay with Jake Ackerman. Yeah, I said that already. Imagine the combo of Ackerman, De Bruyne, and Townsend as our attack coach. We're not getting Gregor Townsend. So Fiscal says, who said Ninaba will leave? Well, there we go. Who is our assistant coach? Which one? We've got Felix Jones. We've got Dion Davids. We've got Sondila Stick. We've got Don Human. Just keep Gary Gold as far away from the box as possible. He's over in the USA, so don't need to worry about him. As long as Rusty picks him. Yeah, well, again, there's lots of talk about him potentially going to England. There's always those new rumors. Lewis says, "Well, about to say, would they not look at Dion Davids and Sticks?" Yeah, I mean, look, Dion Davids has got head coach experience. And he did a pretty good job at EP, which is why he suddenly became part of the box setup. So, he might be an option in 2 years' time. Would you take Eddie Jones? Probably not. Have you seen the new Sharks coaching structure? Yeah, I'm quite interested to see how they do, actually. Nicholas Pocky says, I'm not convinced that Nino Bell is good enough as head coach. As defensive coach is unmatched, but I think an ex-player will always make a better head coach. Nah, I don't think so. I'd look, well, whether he's good enough or not, we'll wait and see, I suppose. He does have a couple of feathers in his cap, so I'm not going to question him just yet. But I don't really like that whole has to be an ex-player kind of vibes, because I think there are plenty of coaches who have done very well without playing at the highest level. So that part of me of him doesn't faze me in the slightest. But I mean, Eddie Jones didn't play at a particularly high level. I think he played like 12 professional games. But especially these days, when I think that you really can come to know a game an incredible amount of the game without playing it, because you can analyze and watch and, you know, understand and be able to get into various things. And there's so much technology available to be able to look at how games work, stuff like that. So I do think that it's becoming less and less important to have played the game. It's more, I suppose, from a relatable point of view, when you're telling a player, I need you to put your body on the line, and they're sitting there saying, hey, chief, you've never had to stop, I don't know, till I felt out in his tracks. Like understand what I'm going through here. So that's more that kind of issue. But I think from a tactical and a coaching point of view, I don't think that being an ex-player is 100% necessary. Jan says we get Townsend. Chaps, we're not getting Gregor Townsend. Felix Jones worked with Jacques and Rassie overseas already. Gregor Townsend is not going to go from being the head coach of Scotland to coming and coaching South Africa. So I mean, Felix Jones was with them at Munster, so that's why he came as like a bit of a dual package. Look, I'm not saying I wouldn't want Gregor Townsend. I mean, who wouldn't want Gregor Townsend? I think he's potentially being lined up as the next blooming British and Irish Lions coach. But that's what I say. I just don't see him being involved. Entertainment says John Dobson may not be a conventional coach, but he bred a winning culture. The Stormers, a team with rejects like Ori, Roos, and Liebach. I wouldn't be upset to see John Dobson as part of the coaching setup. I'd just be very surprised if he were the head coach. Hello. Joe Philo with a massive super chat. Thanks so much. Saying, shout out to Ferris Sports. Good to see Box fight back to win against Wales. Don't see that happening in game 2. Box to win 13 plus. Can't wait for the All Blacks versus Box. Miss SA being part of the Super Rugby. Well, thank you so much for the super chat. Really appreciate it. That's actually what I needed today. I've had a really weird day, so I really do appreciate that. That's actually really cool. So thank you so much, Joe. And hopefully we'll see you on the stream, especially when it comes to New Zealand games. Looking forward to those. Grant B says, Ruiz, Peter, Steph, Toy, and Kwaka will be a very mobile, loose trio. Wouldn't mind Scott Robertson to coach SA. Heineken Meyer wasn't that bad, though. He had a lot of pressure on him in 2015 because of political reasons. Will be interesting to see what Fabian Gaultier could do with the Springboks. Did Neil ever had been a head coach before this? No, not officially. He was very much one of those who came through the ranks. But again, I don't think we need to be talking about a head coach just yet. Ross says Towns will be the next Sharks coach. Oh, it would be such a smart appointment. Imagine. No, surely not. Jan says, get Mike Cat as our new coach, attack coach after Rugby World Cup 2023. He was born in RSS, so we can get him maybe. It will be super interesting to see what form Peter Steph Toys in when he makes a return. Man has an engine. Yeah, I think that I'm hoping we're going to see a big match from Peter Steph Toy because we've missed him a lot. I mean, anybody would miss him. We do have incredible loose forwards, but at the end of the day, you're always going to miss a former world player of the year. So hopefully he is back to his best. So in terms of what I think we'll see this weekend, I think the backline will stay quite pretty much the same. I think we'll see Pod coming in 10. I don't think we'll see Villy starting at 15. I think we'll stay with Willemse. I don't know if we're going to see much change. I mean, Max Pimpy didn't do much, didn't have a lot of opportunity. I don't see us changing the centers. Maybe Jesse Creel gets a run out, but I wouldn't. Maybe Esthazen gets a run out next weekend. I'll be surprised if Esthazen gets an opportunity this weekend. So I don't see the backline changing too much. The forwards, I reckon we could see a new lock. Whether it's Frank Mostert starting or whether we bring in somebody else, I don't know. But I think we could see a new lock starting and somebody else on the bench. I think we will see a change in the loose trio, whether it's Peter Steph Toy coming in or whether it's Kwaka starting, Peter Steph Toy on the bench, for example, or however we go. I do think that we will see a change there. And I think if we make quite a few changes to the starting lineup, then I think we'll see not a familiar bench, but a lot of familiar players on the bench. So that if things do go badly, we can come back and fix things. So I'm predicting 4 changes to the starting 15, at least 4. Actually, I'm going to say I reckon at least 4, and I think we could also see a change in the front row. I was thinking that I'd like to see Trevor. I don't think we'll see him at loose head. Maybe actually we'll see him at loose head. I don't know. I'd like to see him. I'd like to see. I don't think Ox had the best. I don't think he had much opportunity, but I think that Trevor is too good to leave out of 3 tests. We've got to be playing him. So I do think that Trevor should be coming in, and I would maybe look at. I would probably start Trevor. So I think there could be a change to the starting front row. Definitely, I reckon we could have a new lock, and I reckon we could have a new player in the loose trio. So that's 3 changes already, and I think Pollard will come in at 4. So I'm going to go with at least 4, maybe 5 changes to starting 23. I'm starting 15, and then on the bench. Yeah, and for me, it's very much that the 6-2 or the 5-3 split where we're going to go. I personally would like to see a 5-3, and I'd like to see Alton Yanks on the bench, and I'd like to see him and Pollard playing between them sort of 120 minutes throughout the series. There is there's 240 minutes available at flower half. Alton Yankees has taken 40 of them, so call it 200. Yes, there's still another 160 minutes of flower half. I'd like to see between the two of them getting a good sort of 120, sort of 60 split between those two, because they are our flower halves, and we do need them playing well, because we've got the All Blacks coming in a month's time, and we need to be ready for them. Last few questions before we wrap up the show. Blindman's Paper Spurs says, we can't forget about Kalan 2. The Springboks win game 2, should start game 3. Question, Cape Town Stadium pitch, turning up a lot. Will it favour Wales or SA more? I don't know. Probably, I don't think it'll favour either, actually. I think we're both too similar of sides. Voldy said, I think the Bulls are going to have a massive season. They have a lot of depth and young quality players. They are missing quite a few players, to be fair, but yeah, they still do have a quality squad. Alton kicked in the opposition 22. Andre Pollard does that all the time as well, so that's not a personal preference. That is instruction. We saw that happening about 3 or 4 times last year when Pollard plays. So I think that's very much a strategic thing. How I'm also going to say in that career as a playing combo, I don't think Khaleesi is at his best anymore. Khaleesi will be fine. I have no issue with him. We must start Ruan Nokia at lock. I'd like to see him get an opportunity. I think it'd be very safe. I would prefer to see Ruan Nokia play ahead of Marvin Norrie. I know what Marvin Norrie gives us. He's a very reliable player. I'd like to see what Ruan Nokia can give us. I think Willems at 10 again is a good choice unless Pollard's back, but also depending on Pollard's form. I don't think we'll see Willems at 10. What would your score predictions be? I would be a nice 37-15. I'd like us to concede only 1 try, maybe. I'd like us to concede. I'd like to see us not concede any tries, because that's kind of what we would do. But yeah, I'm hoping that we'll only concede 1 try, and I'd like to see us score 2 or 3 tries. So I'd like to see us break the 20-25 point mold, and I'd like to keep them sort of below 15 points. Second half, Alton 10, Pollard 12. Worked many times, 100%. Cheers, mate. Team announcement tomorrow. Yeah, the team announcement is tomorrow, so we will have it as soon as it comes out. And we will have a show scheduled tomorrow for about 12:30, where we will be talking about the Springbok team. Voldy reckons that Jesse Creel's playing tomorrow's team. Pollard will come right, says Hooper. Clint says, any truth goal will be going to the Stormers. From what I am hearing, strap in, because I think you could have some nice news there. That's just what I'm hearing. Where's Apollo Fassi? He is chilling in a hotel probably at the moment, if I were to hazard a guess. People, thank you very much. We will see you guys on the morrow for an exciting team selection. I do think it is going to be quite an exciting team selection. I think it's going to be quite controversial and interesting to see what people have to say, because people always want lots of changes, and yet sometimes when we do make lots of changes, people then don't like the changes. So you can never really win as a block coach, I feel. But we will see tomorrow what Jacques Nielba and his coaching staff have done. Until then, smash a like on the video. We will have a combined 15 between Wales and Springboks coming out later, which I think will be quite cool. And then tomorrow will be a 5 things learned about the first test. So we're going to be bringing those sort of videos back as well. And then obviously tomorrow's team announcement. Wales team announcement will be on Thursday. We will hopefully have that press conference. I don't know if we're going to be able to get Jacques Nielba's press conference tomorrow. I'm going to work very hard to try and see if we can make a plan, but it's a bit difficult because they are on Bloom. So, yeah, if anybody wants to sponsor me a plane ticket or some petrol money, then we can try and get there, but at this stage, probably unlikely. But, yeah, we'll see you guys very soon. Please do consider becoming a member, as it really did help us get into Bloom, for example, and getting us to Mbombela in a couple of weeks' time and stuff like that. So, you never know. Maybe somebody knows somebody in, like, Sun International, and they can put us up for the week in a hotel somewhere. Let's see if we can make something like that happen. People, keep well. Smash a like on the video on the way back. Make sure you subscribe.